Loves, how are you today? I'm at the garden plot. If you couldn't tell, I'm totally shiny, right? Because it's like 90 degrees. And I'm watering and weeding, and I had some thoughts, of course. So everything first. Everything is growing. Not much movement since the last time that I was here because it's been like in the upper 80s. And so everything is looking a little sad because it's in need. It's in need of some love and attention and some water, right? And so as I was working with the watering all of the peppers, especially because we have some peppers that are getting ready to burst out, right? There's one that's growing and it's setting the pace for everyone else. But I had some thoughts related to, of course you know this, right? Our life. When we are going through some hard times, or when we are dealing with difficult situations in our lives, or in this series, we're going through the process of plucking out those weeds of self-doubt, those weeds of insecurity, those weeds of anger, whatever they are for you. We've been on this journey for a few weeks now of plucking out these weeds from our mind, from our emotions, from our soul, from our core, learning through them, growing through them, identifying them so that they lose hold on us, and we're learning to identify when our triggers are happening and causing those spirals into these negative self-loops, right? Ooh, mosquito, sorry. So today, as I'm ripe, y'all, so mosquitoes are around me. As I was watering today, the thoughts that kind of hit me were, first of all, it's been so hot. It has been so hot that the ground is dry, right? I haven't been here to water in a couple of days, and so the ground is quite dry and it's hard. That got me thinking about the stuff that we're dealing with, the stuff that we're looking at in our life. It's hard, right? What we're dredging up, what we are exposing, what's coming up is the result of, in many cases, the result of coping mechanisms in our life, right? That are there. We all have them. There's no judgment, right? It's the result of trauma, or negative experiences, or situations that have occurred throughout the course of our life that have caused us to accept these negative, false perceptions of who we are, and they've caused some hard spots in our soul, right? Like we have barriers, we have walls, we have spaces and places that we don't allow others in, because it hurts, because of different things, right? It's different for every person. And so in this process of becoming more reflective, this process of intentionally digging into those negative self-loops to see where they're coming from, what's the root of them, we're going to uncover hard places in ourself, within our psyche, within our ego, within our soul, within us, right? And there's a reason why those things are there. There's no judgment here, right? There's a reason why they are self-serving in some way right now. And so in this process of reflecting and digging into why it's there, my thought that I had today as I was watering on the hard ground is we all have hard growth in our life. We all have areas that have been difficult, or that we just don't want to process through for a variety of reasons, because the original origin of the experience is something that was unpleasant. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to go back there, right? We're in the present now. We don't want to go back. Yet, love, it's only through dealing with these things head on and dealing into them, digging into them, that we are truly able to move forward in our life. Because until we take the time, until we take the time to really analyze and assess and process, that opens space for healing to happen. If we're just denying it, or we're just not dealing with it, it's going to continue to manifest in different ways in our lives, right? So the question for today is, what are those hard spaces in your life? What are those hard attitudes that you carry? What are those hard thoughts that you think about yourself based on these self loops that have come into place because of circumstances in your life, people speaking negative things into your life, family hovering over you, a job that was a horrific experience. You know, we all have different triggers, different root causes of these events in our life that then become coping mechanisms. So on this journey of learning to pluck out those weeds, this is part of that process, is learning how to discover those hard places, and rather than deflecting them, rather than pushing them away, rather than denying or dismissing them, journaling about them, writing them down, acknowledging them. And in some cases, then the next step is, just as I was giving water to all of these plants today, I'm so sorry, the mosquitoes are swarming, because as you can see, I'm glistening. And so I'm attracting. My skin and sweat is sweet right now, so I apologize for all of this. But just as I was watering, and I could literally see the earth just soaking up this water, right? And I can see now, even just after a few minutes, how these plants have perked up. They've lifted, they're coming alive. When I got here, everything was like sullen and sad and just looking like it was almost dead, right? But now it's popped back to life. So the question then is, how do we take those hard places? How do we take those spaces that we don't want to deal with? How do we take those places that have a root in us that is causing negative consequences, negative emotions, negative thought, the chatter that's in our brain, right? These self-loop cycles. How do we then speak life, breathe life, water life into those dry places so that we can fully flourish, right? Because that's the purpose of self-care. It's not about going to the spa. That's a tiny little part of it. That's not the self-care that I'm talking about. The self-care that I'm talking about is that deeper work of your soul, right? It's that deeper work of self-awareness. It's that deeper work of understanding why these loops are there, why these patterns of behavior are there, what trauma that we have that's unresolved, major, minor, whatever it is, right? All of these things, so that we can move through life in a way that we are continuing to heal, to grow, to evolve, to become the best version of ourselves that we can be. And all of that means, right? That doesn't mean this positivity, this toxic positivity of constantly putting on a good face. No, that is fake. That is not self-care, right? What I'm talking about is the intentional effort of digging into these deeper places of ourselves that we can break free. We can break free from all of that, that we can live a life of authenticity, that we can live a life of genuine growth in this evolution of who we are as we're becoming a more whole person, as we're becoming a more healed person, as we are becoming a more evolved and aware person, as we're becoming a more loving, caring, compassionate person. All of these amazing, wonderful things, right? When we're committed to the act of self-awareness, introspection, reflection, growth. And so part of the way that we speak life into ourselves could be therapy. Absolutely, it could be therapy. It could be listening to different podcasts related to the root that you've discovered, or the loop that you are constantly hearing, or the trigger that you know that you have, right? It could be listening to podcasts. It could be reading different books. It could be community support groups. There are so many ways to speak life into your soul and to do the deeper work of processing through those limiting beliefs that are present within, that are causing all this chatter to make noise constantly in your brain, and for plucking out every single one of those negative doubts that are present there, right? All of that said, you know I love you, love. You know I care for you, love. You know I'm on this same journey with you. I'm practicing exactly what I am sharing and speaking with you as well. And so I just want you to think about, as we're in this process, in this series over these last few weeks, of being intentional about looking within, looking inward, to really start dealing with this chatter, these negative loops, these perceptions and expectations that have been put on us by others that have then we've internalized, right? And they've worked their way into our ruts in our brain and have caused a lot of negative noise, right? And so as we're taking the time to start dealing with those and unearthing and uncovering, not only identifying what they are, but the root of where they come from. That's this week. This week the thought was, what are those hard places that have formed in our lives as a result of those experiences, those triggers, and the coping mechanisms that we've developed as a means to move through those. And then once this is a life process, right? We're not going to do it all at once, but as you are starting to identify those, then the next step of that is, how do you speak life back into your soul, back into those spaces, back into those places, so that you can be healed, that you can become whole, that those negative weeds that are there in your heart, in your ego, in your, like, all those things can get plucked out and get replaced with life-affirming effort, work, and growth.